Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to cover an SAT practice test. As usual, if you find this video helpful, please like and subscribe and leave a comment to support the channel. Thank you very much. Okay, question 1 says, Tilly earns P dollars for every W hours of work. Which expression represents the amount of money in dollars Tilly earns for 39 W hours of work? So this question is about units. We just have to make sure that the units work out correctly. 39W is hours of work. So 39W, that is hours of work. Let's make sure we get the units in there. You multiply by something and you wind up with dollars. How do I do that? Well, I would like hours on the bottom, or hour, it doesn't matter, and dollars on the top. So dollars on the top. Then these can cancel. Well, how do I get this? Well, it says P dollars for every W hours. P dollars for every W hours. That's what it looks like. P dollars for every W hours. Now, you can cancel the W's right now if you'd like, or you can just keep going and you would have 39WP for the numerator, 39, let's call it PW, and the bottom is just W. And the units, well, hours and hours are gone, you have dollars. And you can cancel them now if you didn't cancel them earlier. These W's will cancel. You wind up with 39P dollars. So 39P is the answer, which is A. Question 2. For a training program, Juan rides his bike at an average rate of 5.7 minutes per mile. Which function M models the number of minutes it will take Juan to ride X miles at this rate? So once again, this is about units. So we have X miles, X, I'll put the units, miles. And what you want to do is multiply by a fraction where miles is on the denominator. You would like to get number of minutes, so minutes on top. I'll use MIN. Okay, 5.7 minutes per 1 mile. 5.7 per 1 mile. These will cancel. 1 mile, so it doesn't matter. Mile and miles, these will cancel. Your final result is X times 5.7, which is 5.7X. And the units, well, minutes, because these are gone, so minutes. And that's what we wanted, minutes. So the answer is 5.7X, which is option D.
Okay, we have a system of equations. 3x equals 12 and negative 3x plus y equals negative 6. The solution to the given system of equations is x comma y. What is the value of y? Okay, now we could solve for x, but we don't have to because 3x equals 12 and there's a 3x right there with a negative. So you have negative and then 3x plus y equals negative 6. And this 3x is 12. The 3x right there, this is supposed to be 3x. That 3x is 12, so we can just put that 12 right there. It used to say 3x, but now it says 12. Negatives on the outside, negatives on the outside. So you have negative 12 plus y equals negative 6. To solve for y, you would add 12 here, and 12 and negative 12 will go to 0. You add 12 here, and you get y equals negative 6 plus 12 is 12 minus 6. It's 6, and y equals 6, so the answer is B.
Question 4, S equals 40 plus 3t. The equation gives the speed S in miles per hour of a certain car t seconds after it began to accelerate. What is the speed in miles per hour of the car 5 seconds after it began to accelerate? So they just want you to calculate this where t is 5. So let's go S equals 40 plus 3 times t, but the t that they want you to use is 5. You put that 5 in there. So without a calculator, this is 40 plus 3 times 5 is 15, and you get 55. But with the calculator, let's get the calculator out. It's 40 plus 3 times 5, and you get 55. So the answer is 55. Question 5 has a right triangle. For the right triangle shown, A equals to 4, B equals 5. Which expression represents the value of C? Okay, for this one, we can refer to the Pythagorean theorem, which, let's look at the formula sheet. And in the formula sheet, you can see here it says C squared equals A squared plus B squared. Or you can write it this way as well, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. But this is fine. Let's use that. So we would get C squared equals A squared plus B squared, which means C squared equals A is 4, so 4 squared plus, and B is 5, so 5 squared. Then you would square root both sides, and you would get C is the square root of 4 squared plus 5 squared. And they said, which expression represents the value of C? A radical where 4 squared and 5 squared are underneath. That's option D. Moving on to number 6, 4x plus 5 equals 165. What is the solution to the given equation? So let's do 4x plus 5 equals 165. We subtract 5 and subtract 5. You get 4x equals 165 minus 5. You can use a calculator as 160. And then divide by 4. Let's use a calculator first. Let me get the calculator out. Okay. 165 minus 5 is 160. And then for the second part, we divide by 4, divide by 4. X equals 160 divided by 4. Let's get the calculator for that. You can just go divide by 4. It's 40. So X equals 40. So the answer is 40. Question 7 shows a graph, and it says the x-intercept of the graph shown is x comma 0, something comma 0. What is the value of that number, this number, x? Well, you can see the x-intercept is the place it crosses the x-axis. And right here, it's between 6 and 8, it's 7. So the answer, this was 7 comma 0. So the answer is 7. Question 8, the function f is defined by f of x equals 1/10 x minus 2. What is the y-intercept of the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane? So one way you can do this is to recognize that you have y equals mx plus b, where b is the y-intercept, and this is y equals 1/10 x minus 2, which means the slope is 1/10 and the y-intercept is -2. Y-intercept -2, well, which of these do we pick? Well, y-intercept when x is 0, so the answer would be b, because we need the x to be 0 and the y-coordinate will be -2. And the other way to find the y-intercept is to use x equals 0 and plug it in. So you get 1/10 0 minus 2, which is 0 minus 2, which is -2. So that the y-intercept is -2, and that's when the x-coordinate is 0. So the answer is B. Question 9. The function f is defined by f of x equals 7x cubed. In the xy plane, the graph of y equals g of x is the result of shifting the graph of y equals f of x down 2 units. Which equation defines function g? So we take this graph, 7x cubed, and move it down 2 units. So g of x is actually f of x minus 2. But f of x itself is 7x cubed, so it's 7x cubed minus 2. That's how you move down 2 units. So 7x cubed minus 2 is what we're looking for, and that is option D. Question 10, x plus 7 equals 10, and x plus 7 squared equals y. Which ordered pair x comma y is a solution to the given system of equations? Now, they tell us in all the options that tell us that x equals 3. They already give that to us. And we can see from here, x plus 7 equals 10. If you subtract 7 and subtract 7, you get x equals 3. We knew that because all the options have x being 3. The real question is, what's the value of y? Now, y is equal to x plus 7 squared. You can put a 3 in there if you like. You get 3 plus 7 squared equals y. And 3 plus 7 is 10, so 10 squared equals y. And 10 squared is 100, 10 times 10. And that's the answer. Y is 100, so that's option A. And the other way is to say, I don't need to plug a 3 in. X plus 7 is known to be 10 by itself. The entire x plus 7 is already 10. I'm not dividing by 10. The entire x plus 7 is 10. So you get 10 squared equals y. You just save a step. You end up here anyway. You still get y equals 100. So the answer is A. Question 11. Which expression is equivalent to, in parentheses, 7x cubed plus 7x, subtract another parentheses, 6x cubed minus 3x. So what we want to do is distribute this negative sign. Let me write the question out again here. 7x cubed plus 7x minus 6x cubed minus 3x. This is equal to, remove the first parenthesis, so 7x cubed plus 7x. And here we distribute negative 6x cubed. And careful, negative, negative, which is positive 3x. And now we combine like terms. 7x cubed and minus 6x cubed is 1x cubed, which is x cubed. The 1 is invisible. This 1 over here, is optional. Then you have plus 7x plus 3x. If you combine those, you get 10x. 7 plus 3 is 10x. So finally, you get finally you get x cubed plus 10x. X cubed plus 10x, which is option A. Question 12 says the function p is defined by p of n equals 7n cubed. What is the value of n when p of n is equal to 56? So what they're saying is this whole left side will turn into 56. So you have 56 equals 7n cubed. So what you do is you divide by 7, and you divide by 7. You get 8 equals n cubed. 56 divided by 7 is 8. Let's verify that with the calculator. 56 divided by 7 is 8. So finally you have 8 equals n cubed. And then from here, you would cube root both sides. So you cube root this and cube root that. N cubed cube rooted is back to n. And the cube root of 8, let's use the calculator for that. So you can do math, and the cube root is right here, number 4. Put an 8 in there, and the cube root of 8 is 2. So the answer is 2. Now, that's one way to do it. But you might say, can't I just plug these numbers in and see which one gives me 56? And that's another way to do it. Let's try that way. 7n cubed. So here we go. So we have 7 times 2 cubed. That's the answer. That works. But why don't these work? Let's try 7 times 8 thirds cubed. It's not 56. Let's try 7 times 7 cubed, which is option C. That's more than 2,000, and that's not 56. 7 times 8 cubed would be even more. It is more than 3,000. This is also not 56. So the first option worked. And that's why the answer is A. Question 13. Figure not drawn to scale. In the figure shown, line C intersects parallel lines S and T. So these two lines are parallel. And line C intersects those two parallel lines. Okay, what is the value of x? Now, One thing we know about this 110 is because of corresponding angles, this angle here, these two are corresponding angles. That's one way to go about this problem, which means that this angle here is also 110 degrees. Now these two angles are next to each other on a straight line. It's called a linear pair. Therefore, they must add to 180. So 110 plus x has to equal to 180. If you subtract 110 from both sides, you get that x equals 180 minus 110. You can use a calculator for that. 180 minus 110, and you get 70. So the answer is 70. Moving on to number 14, a list of 10 data values is shown. 6, 8, 16, 4, 17, 26, 8, 5, 5, 5. What is the mean of these data? So the mean is you add them all up and you divide by the number of items that you see. So we're going to add some stuff up. 6 plus 8 plus 16 plus 4 plus 17 plus 26 plus 8, and we need more room, plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. And then we have to divide by however many numbers that we see. Well, it tells you that there are 10 numbers. And is that true? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there are 10 numbers, and they even give that to you. So there's no need to count. Sometimes you'd have to count it yourself, but here they tell you it's 10. So you divide that by 10. And this number is the mean of these data. Okay, let's get the calculator out. And what I want to do is make a fraction and go 6 plus 8 plus 16 plus 4 plus 17 plus 26 plus 8 plus a single 5, another 5, and one more 5. And on the denominator, we'll do a 10. Your final answer is 10. That is the answer. So the mean of these numbers is 10. Question 15. The equation E of t equals 5 times 1.8 to the power of t gives the estimated number of employees at a restaurant, where t is the number of years since the restaurant opened. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 5 in this context? This 5 over here. Okay, the estimated number of employees when the restaurant opened, the increase in the estimated number of employees each year, the number of years the restaurant has been open, and the percent increase in the estimated number of employees each year. Now, these kinds of functions, these are exponential functions. This is an exponential growth function because this is more than 1. So, one way to interpret what the 5 is to say, well, what happens when t is 0? T 0 is when the restaurant opened. T is the number of years since they opened. So if t were 0, you would get E of 0 is 5 times 1.8 to the power of 0. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. So this is 5 times 1, which is 5. So when the restaurant first opened, they had 5 employees. The estimated number of employees when the restaurant opened. So that's the answer. It's A. Now, let's take a look at what this is. The number of years the restaurant has been opened. That's the T. That's what the T represents. Number of years since the restaurant has opened is this T up there. The percent increase in the estimated number of employees each year, that's 80% because 1.8 is 0.8 more than 1, and 0.8 is 80%. So this is actually 80%. The increase in estimated number of employees each year, that one doesn't exist. That happens when you have a linear growth. Then you have a certain number every year. This one, every year would depend on how many employees there were the previous year, because it's an 80% increase on the previous year. So, but this one is the 5, and so the answer is A. Question 16. g of x equals x squared plus 55, what is the minimum value of the given function? So I'll do it with Desmos as well, but what we'll do is this is a parabola and it opens up because the leading coefficient is a positive number, it's +1. So the parabola looks like this. And the minimum value is the y coordinate of the vertex. So let's go find the vertex. We know we can use negative b over 2a to find the x coordinate. And the b in this case is 0. Let's be really careful because a is 1, b is 0, and c is 55. Be careful, b is 0 because that b is the coefficient of the x term. When you have ax squared plus bx plus c, so the b in this case is 0 because this can be written as x squared plus 0x plus 55. So b is 0. So negative 0 over 2 times 1, which comes out to 0. So the x coordinate of the vertex is 0. But we want the y coordinate of the vertex, which would be g of 0. You plug it back in. G of 0 is 0 squared plus 55. 0 squared is 0, and you have 55. So that is the answer, B. Now, if we did it in Desmos, let's take a look. You can just type in x squared plus 55. And you'd have to go find where the minimum is, but there it is, and the minimum is 55. The y value of the y coordinate of the vertex, that's the minimum value, 55. Question 17. Each year, the value of an investment increases by 0.49% of its value the previous year. Which of the following functions best models how the value of the investment changes over time? Well, it says it increases. So we are definitely not going to do the decreasing ones. So those are out. The real question is, does it increase by a fixed amount every year, or exponential would be a percentage amount every year? Well, it increases by a certain percentage amount instead of a fixed amount. So that's C. The answer is C. Now, if they said increases by, let's say, $200 per year, that's a constant amount constant amount of increase per year. That would be linear. But if it increases by a percentage of its previous value, a percentage of its value the previous year, that's exponential because it's not a fixed amount every year. It is a fixed percentage amount every year, and that's exponential. Question 18. The population of Greenville increased by 7% from 2015 to 2016. If the 2016 population is K times the 2015 population, what is the value of K? Okay, so when you increase by 7% from one year to the next, you have to multiply by, so whatever the population is in 2015, you have to multiply by 1 plus 7% to arrive at the population in 2016. Let's call this population in 2016, population in 2015. So this number here is what they're asking you for. That's the K, because what they're telling us is that the population in 2015 times by some K is population in 2016. But we know that the population in 2015 has to multiply by this number to get the population in 2016. So this is our K. This little piece here is a K, 1 plus 7 over 100. You can use a calculator for that. And you would get 1 plus 7 over 100, and you get 1.07. So the answer is 1.07. 1 plus 7 over 100 is 1.07, which is option C. Now, option D is not increased by 7%. This one is increased by 70%. And A and B are decrease, actually. Just for information, this one, it would be decrease by 93% because it's only 7% left. And this one would be, if I can fit it somewhere, decrease by 30% because it's 70% of its original number. So the answer is C. Okay, let's look at question 19. Which expression is equivalent to a to the power of 11 over 12, where a is some positive number? Okay, so one thing we note about exponents is that when you have something to the power of, m over n, this can be rewritten as, with the radical, it's the nth root of x to the m. For instance, if you have x to the power of 5 over 7, you can rewrite that as the 7th root of x to the 5th. So that's an example. So you can also do it from here to here. So here's what I mean. This can be rewritten as a to the power of 132 over 12. This can be written as a to the power of 132 over 144. This one can be written as a to the 132 over 121. And this one can be written as a to the power of 132 over 11. And we're looking for a to the 11 over 12. So one of these fractions is equivalent to 11 over 12. The fastest way you can tell is that 11 is less than 12. This fraction is below 1. And of all the fractions that we have, there's only one that's below 1, which is this one, because the numerator is less than the denominator. So this is the answer right away, because you can see 132 over 144 is less than 1. However, you can use your calculator to simplify 132 over 144. Let me get the calculator out real quick. And let's go ahead and do some fraction work. And we can see 132 over 144. That's 11 over 12. And these other fractions won't be 11 over 12. So that's the answer, B. Question 20. An event planner is planning a party. It costs the event planner a one-time fee of $35 to rent the venue and $10.25 per attendee. The event planner has a budget of $200. What is the greatest number of attendees possible without exceeding the budget? Okay, let's call the attendees X. So it's $35 you have to pay one time, and then you pay $10.25 per attendee. And you want all of these to be at most, which means less than or equal to, $200. And this is the inequality we would like to solve. So I'm going to subtract 35. Subtract 35. You can use a calculator and you get 10.25x. Let's use the calculator for this. Let's get $200 minus 35 is 165. 165, and then you divide by 10.25, divide by 10.25. We divided by a positive number, so we will leave the inequality symbol alone. And the final number will be whatever this is. Let's get the calculator. I already have 165, so I'm going to divide by 10.25. 16.0975 and so on. So 16 point something, which means the maximum number, the greatest number of attendees possible is 16. Now, I want to point out that the calculator had something like 16.0975 and so on. 0975 and so on. And so you might think, well, this rounds to 16, so I should use 16. Well, it's because x is less than this. Even if you got x less than 16.9, you would still use 16. You would not use 17, very importantly, because you want to be below this number. So we're not rounding off, we're rounding down. So the answer is 16. Question 21. If the absolute value of 4x minus 4 equals to 112, what is the positive value of x minus 1? Okay, so absolute value of this equals 112. That means we can break it up into two pieces, 4x minus 4 could be 112. 4x minus 4 could be negative 112. Okay. Now, ordinarily what you would do is you would add 4 and then divide by 4 later. Add 4 and divide by 4 later. But that's to solve for x. And you can do it that way. I want to get x minus 1. So there's a faster way. I can just divide by 4 right away. And divide by 4 right away. So 4x minus 4 divided by 4, you have to be very careful, but you get x minus 1 because let me factor 4x minus 4 real quick. 4x minus 4 can also be written as 4 parentheses x minus 1. And that, when you divide by 4, you get x minus 1. Okay. So in other words, this whole piece here becomes x minus 1. And 112 divided by 4, let's use the calculator. It's 28. And that's the answer, because over here you would get x minus 1 equals negative 28. You want the positive value of x minus 1, and so the answer is just 28. Now, what if I did it the other way by finding x first? So let's do it that way. Plus 4, and plus 4, and plus 4, and plus 4. This is also possible. You would get 4x equals, this plus 4 is 116. Here you would get 4x, because these cancel. And negative 112 plus 4, use your calculator, is negative 108. And then when you divide by 4, and divide by 4, and divide by 4, and divide by 4, you would get x equals, and x equals, and let's use the calculator for 116 divided by 4, and negative 108 divided by 4. (116 divided by 4, negative 108 divided by 4. It's 29 and negative 27. 29, negative 27. But they want the value of x minus 1, not just x. So I have to get x minus 1. Now x minus 1, the two possible values are, well, depending on x is, right? So x minus 1 could be 29 minus 1, because that could be x, or negative 27 minus 1. Those are the two possible values of x minus 1. I can use the 29 for my x, or the negative 27 for my x. This comes out to 28, and this comes out to negative 28. And once again, the positive value of x minus 1 is 28. Be careful, don't put 29 as your answer. That's the value of x. That's not the value of x minus 1. So the answer is 28. Question 22. A cube has an edge length of 68 inches. A solid sphere with a radius of 34 inches is inside the cube, such that the sphere touches the center of each face of the cube. To the nearest cubic inch, what is the volume of the space in the cube not taken up by the sphere? So what we have is we have a cube. If I can draw it right, let's see. So here's a cube, a rough sketch of a cube. And inside the cube, there is a sphere, a ball, if you will. And the ball touches the edges, the center of each face. So right there at the bottom, which we can't see, but the bottom, it touches the bottom, and so on. But it takes up as much space as it possibly can. So if you would like the volume of the space not taken up by the sphere, what we're looking for is volume of cube minus volume of sphere. And that's what we're looking for. Now the cube's volume is 68, 68, and 68. So it's 68 to the third power, 68 cubed. If you look at the formula sheet, they do have volumes to look at. Let's take a look. Okay, we have the volume of a rectangular prism, which is length times width times height. You can use that for a cube as well. It'll just be length times length times length. They'll all be the same, but you can still 68 times 68 times 68 for our example. Okay. So the volume of the cube is 68 cubed. And the volume of the sphere, let's look at the formula sheet again for the volume of a sphere. And here we have the volume of a sphere. It is 4/3 pi r cubed. 4/3 pi times the radius cubed. Okay. Let's go back to our question. Okay. So the volume of a sphere, we've already figured out. It's 4/3 pi times the radius cubed. So 4/3 pi times some number cubed. Now, what is the radius of this sphere? This sphere, let's be very careful. 68 is all the way across. So the diameter from one end of the sphere to the other end, that is 68. But that's not the radius. The diameter is 68. The radius will be half of that, 68 divided by 2. You can use your calculator, it's 34. So the radius is just from the center of the sphere to that edge, and that is 34. It's half of 68, so 34 is our radius. So this would be the answer, 68 cubed minus 4/3 pi times 34 cubed. I'll do it once in the calculator and once in Desmos. So here's the calculator version. 68 to the third minus 4/3 pi, and then 34 to the power of 3, like that. And you get the answer of 149,795.7898. If you compare it to the options that you have available in the question, you would see that the answer is A. And let's do it in Desmos as well. So here are Desmos, which works as a calculator. 68 cubed minus 4/3 pi, you can just type pi, and then parentheses 34, close it up to the third power. 14795 point some stuff. Well, if you compare it to the options, 149,795, I mean 149,795 and some stuff. And if you compare it to the options, it's option A. So the answer is A. Question 23. What is the diameter of the circle in the xy plane with equation x minus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 16? Now, if we know our circle equations, the circle equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. If you compare it to this, you can see, and hk is the center of the circle. So the center of the circle is the hk, and the radius of the circle is the r. Okay, so based on that, the center is 5, 3. Careful, not -5, but just 5. So this circle has a center of 5, 3. Now, they didn't ask us about the center, but that's the center. And the radius, well, this 16 is not the radius, it's the radius squared. If you were to square root both sides, you get the radius is 4. Be careful, that's not the question. The question is the diameter. Now, I wish they would have underline this or make it bold or italicized or something. But underline would be great. But they want the diameter, which is twice the radius. So the diameter is 2 radius, which is 2 times 4, which is 8. So the diameter is 8. And the answer is B. You can plot this in Desmos. So let's take a look at that real quick. Okay. So in Desmos, we have x minus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 16. And here's the circle. And this is the top, this is the bottom. 7 and -1. Well, that's the diameter from 7 to -1. And you can see that they are 8 apart. 7 minus -1. Let's go ahead and do that here. 7 minus -1. You get 8. That means that these 2 points have a distance of 8, and that's the diameter. Now, I mentioned that the center was 5, 3. Let's go ahead and plot that as well so you can see it. 5, 3. Label it. Boom, that's the center. And the radius is basically from here to from the center to the edge. So the radius is 4. But just be careful that they're asking you for the diameter, which is 8, not 4. So the diameter is 8. Question 24. For the exponential function f, the value of f of 1 is k, where k is a constant. Which of the following equivalent forms of the function f shows the value of k as the coefficient or the base? They're telling you all these 4 are the same function. If you plug in something, you get the same output every time. Now let's show that. F of 1 is k. Let me plug in into Desmos 1 for all the x's. So let's look at the first one. 50, 1.6 to the power of, and we want 1 for the x, so 1 plus 1. Now Desmos doesn't let you do it like that, so there are a couple of workarounds. One is to do to the power of 1 and then go behind it and do 1 plus 1 like that. That's one way to go about the problem. Another way, and I'll show you this other way, is to just 1.6 to the power. You want to put 1 plus 1, you can just put parentheses 1 plus 1, and then you can type whatever you want up there. It doesn't stop you. So 1 plus 1. Okay. So I'll use that method. And then this is 80, 1.6 to the power of 1, and it's all 128 because these are all equivalent. 128, 1.6 to the power of, use the parentheses method, 1 minus 1, and you can see it's 128. 204.8 parentheses 1.6 to the power of 1 minus 2. I'm plugging in 1 for all my x's. Of course, they're all the same. They're all 128. But the question was, which of these 4 choices has 128? Because let's calculate. We calculated f of 1 is k, which is actually 128. So k is 128. And which of the following options shows the value of k in plain sight? 128. Well, 128 is right there. And none of the other ones have it. So the answer is C. Okay, question 25. A model estimates that at the end of each year from 2015 to 2020, the number of squirrels in a population was 150% more than the number of squirrels in the population at the end of the previous year. The model estimates that at the end of 2016, there were 180 squirrels in the population. Which of the following equations represents this model, where n is the estimated number of squirrels in the population, t years after the end of 2015, and t is below 5. That's not too relevant. It's just saying this model doesn't work forever. It works just for this stretch of time. But let's figure out how to work this 150% more. Now, if somebody told you 20% more, you might have seen that that's 1.2, but why? Well, you're doing 1 plus 20%. If you put this in a calculator, you get 1.2. Go ahead and practice putting that in the calculator. I'll do it right now. 1 plus 20 over 100, and that's 1.2. So that's 20% more. Okay, I'm leading up to 150% more. So how do we work on that? So now, if you had 150% more, which is what we have, we would do 1 plus 150 over 100. That's why I wanted to show the example with 20%. So for that, 1 plus 150 over 100, we would be using 2.5. 2.5. Now be very careful, 1.5 is actually 50% more, not 150% more. So we want to use a 2.5. So our choices are B and D. This is out, and this is out. Now, the real question is, at the end of 2015, because T stands for years after 2015, we want to know at the end of 2015, do we want to use 72 or 180? So we have to figure out, we have the correct number in the parentheses, but we don't know whether it's 72 or 180. Well, one thing we know is that in 2016, it's got 180. Now, 2016 is 1 year after 2015. So in 2016, or shall we say at the end of 2016, the T for that situation is 1, because it's 1 year after 2015. So we want, basically when T is 1, we would like 180. And assuming I don't have the first number. So basically I have N equals, I don't have the first number. I don't know if it's 72 or 180. 2.5 to the T. This is what I have. And they tell me when T is 1, I get 180. So this is 180. This I don't know. This is 2.5, and this is in 2016 where the T is 1. If you calculate this, you get 180 equals A times 2.5 to the 1, which is 2.5. This looks clumsy. Let me rewrite this as 2.5A. 2.5A. Then you divide by 2.5 on both sides to solve for the A. 180 divided by 2.5. Let's put that in the calculator. 180 divided by 2.5. It's 72. Okay. That means our starting number is 72. So we'll pick option B, and that's the answer. Question number 26. 5x plus 7y equals 1. Ax plus by equals 1. In the given pair of equations, A and B are constants. They're just numbers. The graph of this pair of equations in the xy plane is a pair of perpendicular lines. These two are perpendicular to each other. Which of the following pairs of equations also represents a pair of perpendicular lines? One of these 4 choices will have a pair of perpendicular lines. So let's go figure out the slopes of these lines. The slope for the first equation, let me write that down here, 5x plus 7y equals 1. Now, at some point, we should be able to do this mentally, but I'll show you the process. We'll do minus 5x, and you get 7y equals negative 5x plus 1. You divide by 7, and you divide by 7, and you get that the slope is negative 5/7. Y equals negative 5/7 x plus 1/7, which is irrelevant because I care about the slope. Negative 5/7. So at some point you can just look at this and say, wait a minute, I'm going to subtract this over and divide by 7. So the slope is negative 5/7. Same process over here. If you subtract this and divide by b, the slope would be negative a over b. This is very useful because we're going to do a lot of slopes over here, and it's good to do this mentally to save some time. I'll show you the ax plus by equals 1 as well. So here we go. AX plus BY equals 1. You subtract the AX, you subtract the AX. You get BY equals minus AX plus 1. And you divide by B, and you divide by B, and you divide by B. And you get Y equals negative A over B, that's our slope, times X, plus 1 over B. That would be the y-intercept, which is irrelevant. Okay, so negative A over B, just like I said up here, negative A over B. So at some point, you just subtract this term over and divide by the coefficient of the y. And you get these slopes. Now, how do we take it from there? Well, these two lines are perpendicular. So negative 5/7, we need the opposite reciprocal. Opposite sign reciprocal, which means for negative 5/7, opposite reciprocal would be 7/5, positive 7/5. You see, I removed the negative, I changed the sign from negative to positive, and I swapped the numerator and denominator. You get 7/5. Well, that's what negative A over B must be, because this line has a slope of 7/5 in order to be perpendicular to the line above it. So negative A over B is 7/5. That we know from here. In other words, this has to be 7/5. Okay. I'm going to write that down somewhere so I can hold on to that for the rest of the problem. We know negative A over B is 7/5. We'll keep that around. Now let's go calculate the slopes of all these. Same technique, you would get the slope as negative 10 over 7. You see, you subtract the negative 10, you subtract 10x, you get negative 10x on this side, and then divide by 7. So this one, the slope is negative 10 over 7. Instead of m equals, I'm just going to keep it simple and just write the slope, negative 10/7. This one, if you subtract, you would get negative a. Okay, well, I'll write down and you'll see, I'll show you the math, but basically I'm going to subtract this and be negative a over negative 2b. And I'll show you how that comes to be. Of course, this will simplify to a over 2b because the negatives will cancel. But how exactly is that coming about? Ax minus 2by equals 1. You minus the ax away, you minus the ax away, and you get negative 2by equals negative ax plus 1, and you divide by negative 2b to solve for y, and divide by negative 2b. This one as well, but it's irrelevant. It's just a y-intercept. And you see the slope is negative a over negative 2b, negative a over negative 2b, which simplifies to a over 2b without the negatives. So a over 2b. Okay. So it's basically subtract this term and divide by the coefficient of the y term. So you get minus a over negative 2b. Okay, but you can do it the long way. You can convince yourself it's a over 2b. So all that is just to find the slope of this second line, which was a over 2b. Let me put that closer to here. A over 2b. Now, what's the value of a over 2b? Well, that's the same thing as 1/2 times a over b. Well, if you multiply the tops, you get a and you get 2b on the bottom. So this is the same as this. Now, a over b, I didn't write down what a over b is, but from here you can see the other version, which is the fact that a over b is negative 7/5. You just multiply both sides by negative 1. So you get 1/2 times a over b, which is negative 7/5. You can probably stop right here because both slopes are negative, so they're not perpendicular. You can multiply the tops, you get negative 7 over 10. Okay, negative 10/7, negative 7 over 10. Those are not opposite reciprocals because they're both negative. They have to be opposite signs. So negative 7/10. So this is negative 7/10. It's the reciprocal, but not the opposite signed reciprocal. So these two lines are not perpendicular. They're both negative slopes. And for these two, the slope is the same as this one. So this is negative 10/7. And this is also negative 10/7. So if only one of these had a slope of 7/10, that would be the answer. Okay, let's do this one. Same technique, you subtract ax, so you get negative a over 2b. Okay, which is supposed to be half times negative a over b. I guess you don't need this equal sign, but I just want, okay. It's half times negative a over b. If you take a look at this very carefully, these two are the same. Half at the bottom becomes 2b, the top is negative a. That's exactly what we have. Half times negative a over b was 7/5. Ooh, this is promising. This is 1 times 7, 7, and 2 times 5, 10, 7/10. Hey, we have perpendicular lines because this particular line has a slope of 7/10. And there we go, negative 10/7 and positive 7/10. Those are opposite reciprocals, so these two are perpendicular. If you keep working with these, you'll find that they're not. But I will do those. Let's do C and D. So to show why these two are not perpendicular. So this one, the slope would be the same technique. Subtract, and you get minus 2a over b, which is negative 2 times a over b, which is negative 2, and a over b is negative 7/5. You put 1 there, and you get 14 over 5. 14 over 5. So this has a slope of 14/5. And you can see it's not the opposite reciprocal because we needed 7/10. So these are not perpendicular. One's a negative slope, one's a positive slope, but they are not perpendicular. They will not meet at a right angle. This one, the slope would be, it's negative 5 over negative 7, which is 5/7. You get negative 5 over negative 7, which is 5/7. You can do it the long way and you'll get the same result, 5/7 for this, for the slope of this one. It's good to do all four just in case, you know, B was not the answer and you had to keep going. So it's good to know the steps. This is 5/7 slope. This one would be subtract, so you get negative a over b, which is 7/5. Negative over b, you can just see it right there. It's 7/5. So this has a slope of 7/5, which unfortunately they're both positive numbers. So it's a reciprocal, but it's not the opposite sign reciprocal. So these are not perpendicular. So the answer is B. These two lines are perpendicular. This one has a slope of negative 10/7, and this one has a slope of 7/10. You can see they have different signs, and they're opposite sign reciprocal, opposite reciprocals. So the answer is B. Okay. Question 27. X squared minus 34x plus c equals 0. In the given equation, c is a constant. The equation has no real solutions if c is greater than some number n. What is the least possible value of n? Okay, so when you have no solutions, let's look over for a quadratic equation. There's something called the discriminant. And that is b squared minus 4ac. I'll just use capital D for the discriminant, but it's b squared minus 4ac. When your equation is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Be very careful, you need a 0 on one side of the equation. So there are three cases. Your discriminant could be a positive number, or it could be 0, or it could be negative. Right, so this is if the discriminant is positive, 0, negative. What that means for all these cases is for here you would have two real solutions. Here you'd have one real solution. And here you'd have no real solution. Your solutions would be complex conjugates, but for our purposes, no real solution, no real solution. So we are looking for a case where the discriminant is a negative number. So and the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So how do we set this up? Okay, so here's what we do. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. It has to be a negative number. The b in our case is negative 34. Let's put that right there, negative 34. The a is 1, because this is 1x squared, so the a is 1. And the c is this constant c. It just so happens to be c. They could have used k or something like that, but they used c. Anyway, the c here happens to be this c. So we're trying to solve this. Negative 34 squared, go ahead and use a calculator, and I'll just use Desmos real quick. Negative 34 squared. Now, if you're comfortable with squaring, you realize that's the same as 34 squared, because both negative 34 and positive 34 have the same square. In any case, it's 1156, 1156. Okay. So 1156 minus 4 times 1 times c is 4c, has to be negative. One way to solve this is to add 4c. You could also subtract 1156, but I'm just going to add 4c. So you get 1156 less than 4c. An easier way to think of this is 4c greater than 1156. Now when you divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4, you get c greater than 1156 divided by 4. Let's use Desmos for that. $289. $289. So that's the answer. The answer is 289. As long as c is greater than 289, your discriminant will be negative. Of course, if c is much, much bigger, if c is 300, 400, 500, you would have no solutions as well, no real solutions as well. But the minimum that we need is that c must be greater than 289. It says c greater than what number would cause no real solutions? C greater than 289 would cause no real solution. So the answer is 289. Thank you for watching. If you found the video helpful, please like and subscribe, and also leave a comment in the comment section. And I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much.